Imagine a world where the most powerful changes don't roar, they whisper. Where alliances aren't built under the glare of the cameras, but in quiet rooms, on ancient trade routes, and through generations of trust. Today, we're going to uncover one of the most intriguing shifts happening right now, an alliance between Pakistan, China, and Turkey that is silently redrawing the map of global power. This isn't just about politics. It's about how economies are rewiring, how cultures are reconnecting, and how the balance of influence is slowly tipping in ways many in the West have yet to notice. So by the time you reach the end of this talk, you won't just understand what's happening, you'll see the world differently. Because what I'm about to share with you is not a prediction of the future. It's a story already being written piece by piece across continents. And once you see the pattern, you realize that the real question isn't if the world is changing, it's whether you're ready for the world that's coming. The world has always been shaped by the alliances we see, and perhaps more importantly, by the ones we don't fully notice until their influence becomes impossible to ignore. Today, a quiet but determined shift is taking place, one that doesn't dominate headlines in the same way as NATO summits or G7 gatherings, but one that is weaving itself into the very fabric of global economics and politics. Pakistan, China, and Turkey are not staging dramatic press conferences or making aggressive public declarations, but they are steadily building a network of cooperation that is changing the rules of the game. This cooperation is not just about formal treaties or signed agreements. It's about aligning ambitions, complementing strengths, and filling gaps in each other's economic and strategic landscapes. Pakistan brings to the table its geostrategic location, connecting South Asia, Central Asia, and the Middle East. It serves as a gateway to warm waters for China's vast trade ambitions and as a key hub for regional connectivity. China, on the other hand, brings unmatched manufacturing power, financial muscle, and the ability to execute large-scale infrastructure projects with remarkable speed. Turkey contributes its unique position as a bridge between East and West, its growing defense industry, and its influence in regions stretching from the Mediterranean to Central Asia. What makes this shift remarkable is its quiet nature. These countries are not loudly proclaiming a new world order. Instead, they are methodically building trade routes, investing in each other's infrastructure, and increasing military and technological cooperation, laying a foundation that can stand without constant publicity. This is the art of influence without noise, a strategy that relies on creating realities on the ground before the rest of the world has fully grasped their significance. In a way, this is a lesson in subtlety for the modern age. While the attention of much of the world remains fixed on the louder geopolitical dramas, the tensions in the Pacific, the debates within the EU, or the rivalries in the Middle East, Pakistan, China, and Turkey are setting in motion projects and partnerships that could redefine trade routes, energy flows, and regional influence for decades to come. They are not reacting to headlines, they are writing the slow, deliberate story that will one day create them. This is how quiet movements grow into forces that can no longer be ignored, shaping the balance of power in ways that seem inevitable only in hindsight. China's Belt and Road Initiative, often described as the most ambitious infrastructure project in modern history, was designed to create a vast network of trade and transportation links connecting Asia, Africa, and Europe. Turkey's Middle Corridor project, meanwhile, seeks to establish a modern Silk Road running from the east through Central Asia and into Europe, bypassing traditional maritime choke points. Pakistan's CPEC, the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, functions as a vital artery of the Belt and Road, providing China with a direct land route to the Arabian Sea through the port of Gwadar. On their own, each of these initiatives is significant, but when they are interlinked, they form a seamless web of connectivity that has the potential to transform global trade patterns. This integration is not theoretical. It is already underway. Chinese-built infrastructure in Pakistan feeds into Turkish-led railway and energy networks that cross the Caucasus and link with European markets. Freight trains now move from China through Central Asia, across the Caspian Sea, into Turkey and onward into Europe in record times, slashing transport. For Europe, this means that goods, energy, and technology could increasingly flow through this new Eurasian backbone instead of via routes dominated by Western-controlled shipping lanes. The beauty of this integration lies in how it combines each country's geographical and economic advantages into a single continuous route. Pakistan's position connects landlocked Central Asia to the sea. Turkey's strategic location allows for a land bridge into the European heartland. China's industrial capacity ensures the goods keep flowing and the financing keeps projects alive. This is not simply a collection of bilateral deals. It is a deliberate effort to create an alternative network of trade and influence that exists outside the traditional transatlantic sphere. The implications for global politics are profound. A corridor linking the manufacturing might of China, the strategic ports and energy access of Pakistan, and the European gateway role of Turkey creates a supply chain and geopolitical structure less vulnerable to Western sanctions, naval blockades, or currency restrictions. It gives participating nations a greater sense of independence in their economic decisions, allowing them to navigate global power struggles on their own terms. By aligning the Belt and Road Initiative, the Middle Corridor, and the CPEC, these nations are essentially building the backbone of a new Eurasian century, one in which the flow of goods, ideas, and influence bypasses old hierarchies and creates new centers of gravity. Economic interdependence is often seen as the strongest glue holding alliances together, and in the case of Pakistan, China, and Turkey, this bond is becoming increasingly sophisticated. Instead of focusing solely on traditional trade in goods, these nations are weaving together a tapestry of cooperation that spans energy, manufacturing, agriculture, and the digital economy. This approach allows them to reduce reliance on Western-dominated systems and create a self-sustaining network that serves their own growth ambitions while mutually reinforcing each other's strengths. In energy, Pakistan's ports and pipelines are becoming essential gateways for Chinese oil and gas imports, while Turkey is positioning itself as an energy hub connecting suppliers from Central Asia, Russia, and the Middle East to multiple markets. The three countries are also collaborating on renewable energy projects, including solar and wind farms, recognizing that future economic security depends on diversifying energy sources. By linking their energy strategies, they can negotiate better terms with suppliers and buyers and insulate themselves from the volatility of global markets often dictated by Western interests. In manufacturing, China's production capacity pairs naturally with Turkey's industrial flexibility and Pakistan's growing labor force. Turkish companies are increasingly sourcing materials and machinery from China, assembling or refining them domestically, and then exporting finished goods to both European and Middle Eastern markets. Pakistan, benefiting from Chinese investment in industrial zones along the CPEC route, is emerging as a manufacturing base for textiles, electronics, and even defense equipment that can serve both regional and international demand. The digital sphere is another rapidly expanding area of collaboration. Chinese tech companies are investing heavily in Pakistan's and Turkey's telecom and e-commerce infrastructure, enabling faster, cheaper connectivity and fostering local innovation. This digital bridge allows businesses in all three countries to trade more efficiently, share technological expertise, and tap into new consumer markets. It also gives them a pathway to create financial platforms and payment systems outside of the traditional banking networks dominated by Western institutions. What makes this economic synergy so significant is its deliberate design to avoid dependency on any single external power. Each country plays a role in the value chain, and the benefits are distributed in a way that strengthens mutual trust. Over time, this interdependence can evolve into a resilient bloc, capable of weathering global economic shocks and projecting influence far beyond their borders. In a world where supply chains are increasingly weaponized, the ability to operate within an alternative economic ecosystem could prove to be one of the most strategic advantages of the century. Trust is the rare currency in international relations that cannot be bought with money or forced through power. It is earned over time through shared history, values, and mutual respect. The connection between Pakistan, China, and Turkey is rooted in far more than modern-day agreements. It draws on centuries of cultural and strategic ties that shape the way these nations view one another. While the West often build alliances based on immediate political or economic gain, the relationships among these three countries are nurtured by deeper bonds that allow for patience, compromise, and long-term planning. For Pakistan and Turkey, the connection is reinforced by shared religious heritage, cultural similarities, and historical solidarity. The peoples have often stood by each other in times of need, from political support in international forums to humanitarian aid during natural disasters. This has fostered a sense of brotherhood that goes beyond diplomatic formalities. With China, Pakistan has maintained a higher than the mountains, deeper than the oceans relationship for decades, built on unwavering support in times of strategic necessity. China's willingness to invest heavily in Pakistan's infrastructure, even during times of political instability, has strengthened the perception of reliability and mutual commitment. Turkey's relationship with China is more complex but has been evolving steadily as both nations recognize their mutual interests in trade, infrastructure, and regional stability. Turkey's pragmatic approach allows it to work closely with Beijing despite differences, demonstrating a capacity for flexible diplomacy. Pakistan often acts as a bridge between the two, leveraging its trusted status with both sides to facilitate cooperation. These relationships are further reinforced through cultural exchanges, educational collaborations, and military partnerships. Joint training programs, student scholarships, and shared research projects create a steady flow of people-to-people connections, ensuring that trust is not just limited to political leadership, but is embedded within multiple layers of society. This makes the partnership less vulnerable to sudden changes in government or leadership style. In an era where many alliances are purely transactional, the strategic trust between Pakistan, China, and Turkey allows them to take risks and make investments in each other's futures without the constant fear of betrayal. This deep level of understanding enables them to coordinate on sensitive projects, whether in defense technology, infrastructure corridors, or intelligence sharing, with confidence that the other will honor commitments. Over time, this foundation of trust becomes a force multiplier, allowing each nation to move forward with bold initiatives that would be impossible in a relationship built solely on short-term interests. In the evolving landscape of global power, loud confrontations often capture headlines, but the most transformative shifts tend to emerge from quiet, deliberate moves. The partnership between Pakistan, China, and Turkey represents exactly that, a subtle yet potent counterbalance to the dominance of traditional superpowers. Unlike alliances that openly declare the intent to challenge the status quo, this one operates with a strategy rooted in patience, mutual benefit, and gradual position. It does not seek immediate upheaval, but instead aims to build enough strength and independence so that its influence becomes undeniable over time. One of the defining aspects of this approach is its focus on creating alternatives rather than direct confrontation. In trade, the trio is developing transport corridors, manufacturing hubs, and digital platforms that reduce reliance on Western-controlled systems. In defense, they are increasing joint exercises, co-developing technologies, and diversifying their supply chains, ensuring that their military capabilities are less vulnerable to sanctions or export restrictions. In technology, Chinese innovation, Turkish industrial design, and Pakistan's growing tech sector are combining to produce homegrown solutions that can compete on the global stage without relying on approval from Western markets. This counterbalance is also taking shape in global governance, whether at the United Nations, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or emerging trade blocs. Pakistan, China, and Turkey often align their positions on key issues, amplifying each other's voices. Their coordinated stances on matters like sovereignty, territorial integrity, and non-interference in domestic affairs stand in contrast to the interventionist tendencies of traditional powers. This ideological alignment allows them to present a united front without needing to constantly broadcast their intentions. The real strength of this approach lies in its ability to shift influence without triggering immediate backlash. By quietly building economic corridors, securing energy partnerships, and deepening military ties, they create facts on the ground that are difficult to reverse. These developments might not always make front-page news, but their cumulative effect is to gradually tilt the balance of power away from existing hierarchies. Over time, this silent counterbalance could offer smaller nations a viable alternative to the dominance of a single bloc, giving them more room to maneuver in their own foreign policies. By combining strategic patience with steady progress, Pakistan, China, and Turkey are demonstrating that reshaping the world's balance of power does not always require dramatic declarations. Sometimes it only requires the persistence to keep building until the shift becomes impossible to ignore. For Europe, the growing cooperation between Pakistan, China, and Turkey presents both a challenge and an opportunity. On one hand, this alliance is reshaping trade routes, energy flows, and spheres of influence in ways that could bypass traditional European gateways. On the other, it offers the potential for Europe to diversify its partnerships and engage with emerging economic power centers outside the familiar transatlantic framework. The key lies in how Europe chooses to interpret and respond to this evolving dynamic. The most immediate impact is on trade connectivity. As the Belt and Road Initiative, the Middle Corridor, and CPEC converge, goods can move from East Asia to Europe faster and at lower costs through land-based routes that rely less on maritime choke points like the Suez Canal. This means that Europe's traditional role as the final and most valuable link in global trade supply chains may be shared with or even challenged by new hubs along these corridors. If Europe adapts, it could integrate into this network and strengthen its access to Asian and Middle Eastern markets. If it resists, it risks being sidelined as trade naturally follows the most efficient path. Energy is another critical factor. Turkey's ambition to become a regional energy hub, combined with Pakistan's growing role in energy transit and China's vast investments in energy infrastructure, creates a web of supply routes that could offer Europe alternatives to its current energy dependencies. For a continent still grappling with the lessons of over-reliance on a single supplier, this diversification could be a strategic advantage. If it is approached proactively, culturally and diplomatically, Europe faces the task of engaging with a bloc whose values and strategic priorities may not always align with its own. While issues like governance models, human rights perspectives, and regional disputes may create friction, there's also space for cooperation in technology, climate initiatives, and counter-terrorism. The challenge is to find common ground without falling into zero-sum competition. The warning for Europe is clear. The geopolitical map is shifting, and influence is no longer flowing solely from west to east. This silent alliance is creating parallel systems of trade, finance, and diplomacy that operate effectively without European oversight. If Europe does not position itself as an active participant in this emerging order, it could find itself reacting to changes rather than shaping them. The choice between engagement and marginalization will define its relevance in this new era of multipolar power. In a world where power is often measured by noise, the partnership between Pakistan, China, and Turkey is proving that true influence can grow in silence. Through interconnected trade routes, shared economic strategies, deep-rooted trust, and a commitment to long-term positioning, they are crafting an alternative path in the global order, one that challenges old hierarchies without marching into open confrontation. For Europe, and indeed for the rest of the world, this is not a story to watch from the sidelines. It is an unfolding shift that demands engagement, adaptability, and vision. The alliances of tomorrow will not be defined by press releases, but by the quiet, steady work of those building the foundations today. Good luck to all who are willing to think beyond borders, see beyond headlines, and prepare for the opportunities hidden in change. Thank you for listening, and may your own journey in this evolving world be guided by foresight, courage, and wisdom.